Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we're in War Thunder and I'm going to be showing my control scheme and how it all works. A few people have asked me to go through some of the control stuff, mainly the manual control stuff, and I think it's right to do so. I've never really made a video on it, so why not make it this one? So this is aimed at the people who have asked me to do a video on it, and also if you're a player who's maybe been out of the game for a long time, or something like that, then maybe you can use this video to try and get a hold of some of the new mechanics that you might be missing out. So first of all, we're going to look at aircraft, and then in another video we'll have a look at tank controls, but we'll focus on aircraft mainly here, and let's change it to mouse aim. Generally, in realistic battles, I use mouse aim. I used to use a joystick most of the time, but when I realized the majority of the community uses mouse aim, it didn't really make sense for my videos to use joystick. I think joystick gives you more possibilities when it comes to maneuverability, but unfortunately when it comes to actually getting guns on target and being accurate, that's a hell of a lot harder than mouse aim. So what is kind of interesting by these controls, they might kind of put you off, because there's actually quite a lot of different controls. Well, one of the interesting things is, if I set up buttons for the full real controls, and I still use the mouse aim controls, the full real controls I can still access. I'll show you right here what I mean, so let's get into this Tempest, and get into a battle, go into a test flight, and just show you how it all works. So, you can set up controls for a different control method, and still use them in the battle. So right now, as you can see, I have mouse aim on. You can see my mouse moving on the screen. I have a button set up to change the control type. As you can see on the bottom, it is showing the different control types that you can go through. And you can switch in mouse aim to manual engine control, as you can see here. And I can control all of the values that the plane lets me to. There's the magneto, there's the oil radiator, there is the other radiator, and as you can see, it's changing on the engine. If you look at the flaps on the side of this engine at the bottom of the screen, and I change it all down to 0, you can see them close. So I can use manual engine controls even though I'm doing mouse aim, as you can see here. That's something that a lot of the community kind of gets put off by, just because they see it as, oh well, maybe I have to play full real controls to be able to control stuff like manual engine controls, which is found in the area for full real controls down here. But no, you can be using mouse aim and still be able to use those full real controls. I'm just going to save my file, which you should do if you're wanting to be able to keep your commands through updates. Sometimes commands actually or controls get wiped during updates. So using this little thing here, exporting to file, and you know, mine's called controls for everything, saving over it, and then at any point you can just import the file. If you're using a different computer, maybe you're using something which isn't to your normal liking. But anyway, let's go through the controls. Now, when it comes to mouse aim, there's nothing that I have really out of the ordinary. We have all of the guns on the left mouse button. That includes small caliber, large caliber, additional guns, but if I want to only shoot small caliber, I press 1, which is very close to WASD, which is the majority of the time where my fingers are going to be. And 1 uses machine guns, 2 uses cannons. It's pretty much as simple as that. And having left mouse button on all of them basically means that I can shoot them all at once, which is generally what I do. You know, I don't normally split up my fire. Moving on, we have open the bomb bay door. This was actually a new control that was added to the game. I need to get a machine which is going to show all of these little things, not a not a Tempest. Obviously it doesn't have a bomb bay door. So maybe a Mozzie. Let's use a Mozzie. I think that's a good idea. I always like the old Mozzie. If the game will load. There it is. Oops. I haven't used the Mosquito in about a year, but at least I'll be able to show it off. Used to be one of my favourite ground attackers, and well, it kind of got left in the past, unfortunately. Super Props came out. But anyway, here is the Mosquito. And as you can see, it has cannons and machine guns, but I can use my one button on my console, on my keyboard, sorry, to fire the 7.7s, and then 2 fires cannons, and then left mouse button to fire both. Right is zoom in, and C is to move the camera around. So let's move on. Open bomb bay doors. So if you don't want to assign a button to this, that's completely fine. If you press the drop bomb button, whatever it's set to, then it will open your bomb bay doors first, and then you have to press it again to drop the bomb. So you don't need to set anything to bomb bay door. I just think it's a nice little thing to have, just in case you want to control it. I do think there is a difference between having the bomb bay door open and closed. It seems to make a slight performance difference. Sometimes I actually use it as an air brake. If I'm going a little bit fast in my medium or heavy bombers going towards a target. So I have it set to 0, because the way I have my mouse and keyboard, my mouse is basically at the bottom right of where the keyboard is, so I can easily move my right hand onto the numpad, which is where all my manual engine controls are, plus the bomb bay door. So for me, that's where I have it. I don't have drop bomb series set, just because I know how many bombs I need to drop. I want to drop them in a series. I would rather do it manually. It's just one of those things. Fire rockets is left control. Generally, I don't use left control though. Generally, what I use is my mouse. But the reason I have it for left control as well is just in case. See, that's my mouse 4 button. But generally, if I'm not using this mouse, let's say I'm using a standard mouse, which the majority of people I'm guessing do use, then left control is going to be the one that you're going to go for. This means that you're going to have to find something else to put your push to speak on, because control or shift is generally the controls that you use for that. Maybe you find something else. And then let's move on. So we have the Shrug music, cannon activation. Generally that doesn't really matter. The Shrug music is the cannons or guns which are located on the top of some of the planes, and what will happen is you will switch to a different side to be able to shoot them. There is not many planes which actually have them on, so you're not really going to use them that much. It's not something that you really have to worry about unless you are a fan of those vehicles. There is a few German ones, and I believe a few Japanese ones. I don't know if there is any more. But anyway, that's that. Reload guns is just for arcade. We are focusing on realistic. And this is the stuff which kind of matters. These are the controls you're mainly going to use. So we have throttle, axis, roll axis, pitch axis, and yaw axis. So, W, simple as, get the engine, it controls the throttle. W and S control your throttle, at least in my game. And that comes standard, I believe, in War Thunder nowadays. And then we need a lot of controls of the tail of the plane. So we have Q and E, as you can see. Oh, let's get in the air first before I crash this thing. There we go. So, boop. So we have W and S to control the throttle. This is all on automatic instructor controls as well, so this is without any manual engine control, which is the general state I think you should stay in. I don't think you should be flying in manual engine control a lot. It's just a lot of hassle. Especially when the majority of the time you can actually get advantages out of it, but the advantages are so minor that it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to check if this thing even has anything. Let's see. It has an oil radiator. Let's just do that. Put the mixture up to 120. Actually, let's open it up. Screw it. It's got the magneto. There we go. Let's get some more power into these engines. Why are they slowing down? That's really weird. I think this plane might be bugged. But anyway, we're gonna keep going. So, when it comes to your normal controls of how you're going to use your aircraft, your key should be exactly where your left hand is. Now, your left hand should be over the WAS section, because that includes your roll, that includes your throttle up and forward. The Q, as you can see, controls this part, the rudder. And what you can do, yeah, there's something really dodgy about this Mosquito. You can use the Q in many situations to try and get a bit of an edge on your enemy if you're in a turn, or if you're trying to dodge an enemy's shot. Maybe they're shooting at you, like from behind, and then you just do a little bit of a tail wiggle. You've probably seen it quite a lot. But these are all standard to the game. The ones which I've changed is the elevator. As you can see here, going up and down. So the elevator, when you actually start the game, is stuck to page up and page down, which I'm using here, which is a really annoying button to use because it's not in the area where your hand is generally sitting. So instead, I've changed it to X and Z. X and Z is not set to anything else in the game. I actually use it for the driver's seat and the binoculars for my tanks. But yeah, that's the first major change that I use, just to make sure that all of my controls are in one single area. I have my guns in the same area at 1 and 2, Q and E to control the rudder, throttle is right there too, A and D to control the roll, and then elevator as well at Z and X. So they're all pretty much in a palm's reach of each other. So that's the main controls sorted out. I don't really use any of these. The only camera control that is important is the toggle view, so you can go through all of them. As you can see here, so V, you can just go through them. There is no real use to have a button for each of them, because it takes literally, you know, a millisecond to go through them all if you wanted to. And the majority of stuff only really has, you know, maybe 3 or 4 views that you can use on each of the vehicles. C to control the camera, you don't really need to set up anything else. A lot of people use a lead on target camera. I actually turned it off. I think it's set when you first start the game to Alt. But for me personally, the reason I turned it off is because I can track my targets manually, and also I think it really contributes to tunnel visioning for players. So yeah, it's kind of as simple as that. I don't really like that. I really want to know why these engines don't want to live. And how they're not dying at 0% mixture. Yeah, this is weird. Manual engine control seems to be kind of screwed up for this aircraft. Anyway, we're moving in. The other control that is kind of interesting and can be used to make videos is the follow the bomb or follow the rocket control, or follow the ordnance control, I suppose. This is on default set to U on the keyboard, and you know, as you can see, it's pretty cool. You can also move around the camera, zoom in if you want to have a look at them, and yeah, so that's kind of nice if you want to make videos and stuff. Eventually they will fall out the air or hit something and make the camera shake. But that's a nice little tidbit that they've thrown in there, but not really needed for gameplay, you know. Flaps is set to F. When you're in the air, they'll automatically change to combat flaps. If you want... Let's just kill this vehicle. If you want any other different flaps, like let's say you're in a really close turn fight, so let's just lose some speed here, just so I can show. The square brackets key is where they're set. So, as you can see, you can scroll through them if you want. Landing, obviously, being the best for losing airspeed. Then you have takeoff. Then you have combat. and then you have raise. Now in my experience I don't really see a massive difference between combat and takeoff, but landing flaps, especially if you're in a Spitfire, because obviously a lot of the Spitfires don't actually have combat flaps, it makes quite a large difference in your turning circle, but remember you will be losing speed for that as well. So I think that is the majority of the main controls talked about. Oh yes, open cockpit and cockpit lighting, they're just set to 5 and 6, just because, as you can see, there's the lighting, just because they're kind of out of the way, not really required. If you don't want to assign them to anything, I mean, you don't have to, then it's not really, you know, life-changing. The cockpit lighting is kind of nice now because you can actually see it outside of the aircraft, where before you couldn't, and you can also see enemy ones, so just take that into account, especially on night battles. But when it comes to opening the cockpit, once again, that's very much a cinematic thing that you don't really have to worry about. So let's actually go to a plane where manual controls don't just make the engines run at about 20%. That was really weird. Maybe it's an issue with me, not the Mosquito. Who knows? But we're going to go into the Lincoln, and the reason we're going into the Lincoln is just so we can play around with different engines, just to show you in a combat experience why using manual controls can be useful compared to just having automatic on. And, you know, automatic is pretty useful, but sometimes you need that manual control just to give you a bit of an edge. So let's get up in the air with... Actually, no, let's stay on the ground. Okay, let's just check if we actually have it. Manual, radiator, manual... Oh, that's annoying as hell. Let's see. Yeah, so we can turn them off individually, okay. Well, we'll just use this as an example for now. So, with full real controls, the big difference between this and mouse aim is the fact that you generally have to use a joystick, and also you have manual engine controls. Now, as I said before, if you set up engine controls, manual engine controls in full real controls, you can still be in mouse aim and still be able to use them. So you don't have to worry about being in full real controls. If you generally want to change between the control modes, you can set a button for it, which is located here. And as you can see in the screen at the bottom, we're scrolling through them right now, back to mouse aim. Just because that's the one that you're majority of the time going to use. So, the good thing about full real controls is that virtual instructor is turned off, which can be an absolute pain in the ass, but the majority of the stuff is exactly the same. So what we're going to do is move on to manual engine controls. So why are manual engine controls useful, or can be useful, for the average player? Well, if you want to get 110% performance out of an engine, what you're generally going to have to do is turn off the instructor. The instructor is a great feature for a lot of players who maybe aren't as skilled at the game, or maybe don't know the ins and outs of aircraft. But for a player who's played this game for a long time and wants to maximize his efficiency in the game, then turning off the instructor could be one of the best things to do for him. So we'll go back to mouse aim once again. We're on the B-17 just so I can show all of the radiator controls and stuff like that. So if we go to my manual engine controls, these are the main controls that you're going to need or use. To be able to go into the engine controls mode itself, I've set it to the line button, which is normally next to the 0 button at the top of the keyboard. And then to actually select different engines, I have them set to 720. So if we go into the test flight here, so to select engines, we need to hit that button. There we go. As you can see on the left side, we have all of those engines selected right now. Now I can just turn some of them off that I don't want to select. So right now I've only got 2 and 3 selected. So that means if I hit the turn off the engine button or engine control button, we turn off the inner engines, as you can see here. This means that you can manipulate different engines at different times if you need to. So let's go through a scenario, right? So if you are cantering along and you're doing, you know, the normal stuff, you have your radiators full, your oil radiator you don't have control over, you have your magneto set to what highest as possible, you have your mixture pretty high as well, let's say 120%, and your third engine sets on fire. What do? Well, generally what people will do is they'll go into, they'll turn off all of their engines and they'll go into a dive. Well, with manual engine controls, you don't have to. You can just turn off that one single engine and then also change it so its radiator is closed, and it's not unfortunately shown on the B17 here. Maybe we can get it to close. It looks like it's very slowly closing. But that will close, meaning that the airflow is gone, meaning that there's no oxygen to the fire. So you can still have power coming from your other engines, and hopefully you can shut off the worrisome engine, let's call it. Yeah. Let's turn on all the engines again. Let's just get this up in the air, and then we can demonstrate it properly. Oh dear, I might have cocked this up. Oh, we're gonna hit that. Yeah. Oh dear. Alright, let's try again. A nice little feature about the test flight now, if you actually just J out, you go straight back. Also, there you go. There's the bomb bay doors opening. So you can actually use them, as I said, as kind of like a mini air brake, if you kind of feel like it. I don't know where that sign is coming from about flaps. I've never actually seen that before. It must have been when I was screwing with the controls. But anyway, let's get the B-17G up in the air and go through a real-life situation that you may have in-game, showing why manual controls are kind of useful. So, all of the radiators right now are completely closed. Obviously you want to get the maximum speed possible and not too worried about temperature or anything like that. So there we go. Now, let's change to this. So we have manual control on everything. Let's open up the radiators. As you can see, they're opening up there. And we'll leave the mixture at 100%. We could move it up to 120, but there's no real need. And everything should be howdy-doody. So there we go. Right, so let's say we're in a scenario where we're going along. A BF-109 comes down, bang, 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 bang. You know, our gunners are up, which are set to V, by the way. I don't have a button to select different gunners or anything like that. I just kind of fire whoever wants to fire. And bang, 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 bang. The BF-109 has gone over there. And, oh god, he's hit our third engine. What do we do? Okay, turn manual controls on. Turn, so it only selects that third engine. Turn it off. Close the radiator. There we go. And then the radiator should close. I don't know why it doesn't. That's really weird. Actually, no, it looks like it's slowly but surely closing. It just takes its time. If we do that, you gonna close for me? Well, for some reason it's a visual bug on the B-17, but you've turned that engine off, you've closed the radiator to stop air going in, and then you go into a steep dive, and then you starve your engines because you're an idiot. But yeah, that's what you do, and that means that that engine is off. Now if you move back to auto engine controls, that engine will still be off, so once you've set it you can go back to auto engine if you're not comfortable with having to screw with everything else. So if we go back, let's just select the third engine again and turn it back on. There we go. And come on, power up. And then we go back to here, all of the engines are on, all is great. So let's say you want to do it quickly. So let's say the left engine gets hit and set on fire. Bang, 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 and then back to your normal controls. So all you've done there is turned off the engine, just to try and save it from what's going on. So yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that, and that is a real scenario which will happen in games, and this will give you a slight better edge at surviving fires and stuff like that. And also prop trimming is probably, or prop feathering is something that I will have to do a whole video on at some point. But where are all of those controls situated for the manual engines? Well, they're all over my numlock. And the reason for this is because, as I said, it's close to my other hand. I can be controlling the plane with the WAS, the QE, the ZX, and the 1, 2, 3, and the V for bombers with their guns. And if I need to do quick controls with the radiator or oil radiator, it's on the numpad, which is on the right side near my mouse pad. Now, something to take into account with all of these is that when you're setting them up, you want to, instead of, because it will look like this to start, and you'll have maximum value and minimum value. Now let's say you stick to that, right? So I did radiator for this, so let's go back to mouse aim, let's say okay, there we go. So if you actually put that on, now let's go to manual controls, let's just choose the fourth engine. As you can see, you can only change it from 50 to 0 to 100, and it won't actually stay. Once you take your hand off the button, as I'm demonstrating here, it will go straight back to 50. So you can only do small little increments of things, and you'd have to keep your hand on the button if you want to do that. If you want more of a range, which I think is something that is a hell of a lot better, and something that should be standard, which isn't, you have to turn on relative control, and then you have relative control sensitivity. That basically means how fast it's going to go up and down in percentage points, and then you have all of the others as well, with a bit of correction if you feel like it. But if that's the basic way of setting it up, so instead of just having 50, 100, and 0%, you have a whole scale, as you can see here, right? You can see me controlling this right now in the bottom for the radiator, and then same with the mixture. We just turn off the mixture, turn off that. That's another thing you can do to prevent forest fires. You can also turn off the mixture. So close radiator, turn off mixture, turn off engine, hope for the best. That's basically the way to do it. And close the oil radiator if you have that as well. But that's the basic controls that I use for aircraft. The majority of the controls that I use are very similar to the majority of what other players use. The only real difference is the manual controls, which I may use like maybe 1% of the time, but it's nice to have open and also understand how they work and what they can be used for. But if you want screenshots of each of these panels, how would I do it? Well, I'll show you them in the video here. So you can stop it at any point to have a look at the main controls. So we'll just scroll down just to make sure that you see them all. Just pause the video and you can copy them if you feel like it. I'm not sure if I can give you a file which would have it all in anyway. I don't screw with any of the sensitivity stuff. I found the sensitivity I liked and kept with it, and unfortunately that's all you can really do when it comes to this game. You have to find out what is good for you when it comes to the sensitivity part, especially when it comes to all of the full real controls. But there's my general control settings. I hope that helps, and next time we will go and look at tank ones, which are a lot different, but a lot more simple. There's not really as much manual engine stuff going on. Even though you can do it, it's just not very beneficial. But from me and the B-17, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.